The judge's gavel didn't just end the marriage, it shattered her dignity. Standing in the sterile, fluorescent-lit courtroom of the Manhattan family court, Isabel gripped the edge of the scarred mahogany table until her knuckles turned white. Across the aisle, Grant adjusted his bespoke Brioni suit, whispering a joke to his shark of a lawyer that made them both snicker. He thought he had buried her. He thought she was just the penniless, stay-at-home mother he'd discarded for a 24-year-old Instagram model. He had no idea that the document resting in her battered tote bag wasn't a plea for mercy. It was the key to a dormant empire that could buy his entire existence 3 times over. Revenge wasn't just a dish best served cold. In Isabel's case, it was being served with 9 zeros. The humiliation was designed to be absolute. Grant Whitaker didn't just want a divorce. He wanted a demolition. Your Honor, Grant's lawyer, a man named Samuel Dosh, who wore cologne that smelled like aggressive negotiation and pine, leaned against the podium. Miss, Carter is asking for $5,000 a month in spousal support. This is, frankly, laughable. My client, Mr. Whitaker, has supported her hobbies for 10 years. She has no career, no assets, and, according to our private investigator, she is currently late on the rent for a studio apartment in Queens. We are offering a one-time settlement of $10,000 to help her get on her feet, and not a penny more. Isabel Carter stood frozen. She wore a simple gray suit she had bought at a thrift store on 82nd Street specifically for this day. It was clean, but the cut was dated, and next to Tiffany, Grant's new fiancée, who sat in the gallery wearing a season-current Chanel blazer, Isabel looked exactly like what Grant said she was, a relic. Miss Carter, Judge Harrison peered over his spectacles. Do you have a response? Isabel's own lawyer, a court-appointed representative named Sarah Jenkins, who looked exhausted and over-caffeinated, stood up. Your Honor, my client raised Mr. Whitaker's 2 children from a previous marriage as her own for a decade. She sacrificed her career in graphic design to manage his household and host his business dinners. The settlement offer is insulting. Grant scoffed loudly enough for the stenographer to pause. He leaned forward, his voice dripping with that fake, pitying tone he used to use when Isabel burned the roast. Isabel, honey, he said, ignoring the judge, let's be real. You were a glorified nanny. You're almost 40. You have no savings. Take the 10 grand. Buy yourself a cat. It's over. The courtroom tittered. Tiffany covered a giggle with a manicured hand. Isabel looked at Grant. This was the man she had nursed through a bout of pneumonia in 2018. This was the man whose business reputation she had saved by smoothing over his drunken insults at the annual Whitaker Corp Gala. I don't want your charity, Grant, Isabel said, her voice shaking only slightly. Good, Grant shot back, because you're not worth it. The judge banged the gavel. Order. Based on the prenuptial agreement signed in 2014, which this court deems valid, Mr. Whitaker's assets are protected. Miss Carter, you are awarded the one-time settlement of $10,000. Case closed. Grant high-fived his lawyer. He didn't even look at Isabel as he walked out, but as he passed her, he leaned in, whispering, Enjoy Queens, sweetheart. Don't forget to take the trash out. Isabel didn't cry. She felt a cold, hard knot form in her stomach. She gathered her papers, placed them in her bag, and walked out into the biting November wind of New York City. She checked her bank balance on her phone. $412. Grant had won. He kept the Hamptons house, the Tribeca loft, the cars, and the dignity. Isabel had $412 and a subway card. But the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. 3 weeks later, Isabel was scrubbing the floor of a diner in Astoria. She had taken the first job she could find. The settlement check from Grant hadn't cleared yet. His lawyer was stalling, claiming an administrative error just to twist the knife a little deeper. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Her back ached, and her hands were raw from bleach. Isobel, you got mail, the manager, a gruff man named Lou, shouted from the back office. Lou, I'm working, she called back. It looks fancy. Registered. From Switzerland. Isabel paused. She shut off the mop bucket and wiped her hands on her apron. Switzerland? She didn't know anyone in Switzerland. She walked into the cramped office. Lou handed her a thick, cream-colored envelope. The paper was heavy, textured, the kind that cost more than her hourly wage. The return address was embossed in gold leaf. Garrison, Fjord, and Associates, Bahnhofstrasse, 45, 8001, Zurich, Switzerland. Attorneys at law. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Dear Miss Isabel Carter, it is with solemn duty that we inform you of the passing of your maternal great-uncle, Mr. Alistair Sterling, formerly of the Sterling Vanderbilt lineage. As you may know, Mr. Enster, Sterling was a man of extreme privacy. Isabel frowned. She knew nothing about an Uncle Alistair. Her mother had been an orphan. She never spoke of family. Isabel had always assumed she came from nothing. Per the terms of the Blind Trust, established in 1995, the assets were to remain sealed until the beneficiary reached the age of 38 and faced significant personal hardship. Your recent divorce proceedings, which were monitored by the Trust's executors, as per the hardship clause, have triggered the activation of the inheritance. We require your presence in Zurich immediately. Enclosed is a first-class ticket on Swiss International Airlines for tomorrow evening, along with a reservation at the Dolder Grand. Please contact us upon receipt. Sincerely, Stefan Fjord, Senior Partner. Isabel read the letter 3 times. She looked at the plane ticket tucked behind the letter. It was real. Bad news? Lou asked, chewing on a toothpick. Isabel looked up, her eyes wide. I have to quit, Lou. You quitting on me? In the middle of a shift? Yes, she said, untying her apron. I think I have to go to Switzerland. She walked out of the diner, leaving the mop standing in the bucket. She didn't know it yet, but the woman who walked into that diner was never coming back. The meeting room in Zurich overlooked the lake, the water shimmering like crushed diamonds under the winter sun. The law firm of Garrison, Fjord, and Associates was quieter than a library and smelled of old money, leather, mahogany, and silence. Stefan Fjord sat across from Isabel. He was a man in his 60s, with silver hair and a suit that cost more than Grant's car. Thank you for coming, Miss Carter, Stefan said, sliding a black leather folder across the table. I assume you have questions. I didn't know I had a great uncle, Isabel said, feeling out of place in her thrift store coat. My mother told me she had no family. Your mother, Stefan said gently, was protecting you. The Sterling family is complicated. Old industrial money, steel, shipping, and in later years, quiet tech investments. Your mother left the family because she wanted a simple life. But Alistair, her uncle, watched over her and you from a distance. You said the trust was triggered by hardship? Correct. Alistair despised bullies. He wrote a specific clause. If my niece or her issue should ever be laid low by the arrogance of another, the gates shall open. We have been monitoring the court transcripts from New York. Stefan opened the folder. The Grant Whitaker situation, Stefan noted, with a dry lack of emotion. He left you with nothing? $10,000, Isabel whispered, and he mocked me. Mr. Whitaker runs Whitaker Logistics, correct? A mid-sized shipping coordinator? Yes, Stefan smiled. It was a terrifying shark-like smile. That is amusing. Why? Because, Miss Carter, Stefan turned the page of the ledger, revealing a balance sheet that made Isabel's breath hitch in her throat. The assets you have just inherited include a 51% controlling stake in Global Transatlantic, the parent company that leases the shipping containers to Whitaker Logistics. You don't just have money, Isabel. You effectively own the supply chain your ex-husband relies on to breathe. Isabel stared at the number at the bottom of the page. $1,240 million USD, liquid assets, and equities combined. $1.2 billion. I own his company? You own the company that owns his company, Stefan corrected. Technically, you are his landlord, his supplier, and his bank. He is currently renegotiating his contracts with Global Transatlantic. He is desperate for a renewal. If he doesn't get it, Whitaker Logistics goes bankrupt in 30 days. Isobel sat back in the soft leather chair. She thought of Grant's laugh in the courtroom. She thought of Tiffany's Chanel blazer. She thought of the trash comment. He doesn't know? Isobel asked. No one knows. The trust is anonymous. Unless you choose to reveal yourself. Isobel looked out at the calmness of Lake Zurich, the fear she had lived with for months, the fear of rent, of groceries, of growing old, alone and poor, evaporated, replaced by a burning, cold heat. I don't want to just reveal myself, Isobel said, her voice steady for the first time in years. She looked Stefan in the eye. I want to destroy him, legally, publicly, and I want him to know it was me. Stefan Fjord picked up a fountain pen. I was hoping you would say that. We have a plan. It involves a masquerade ball in New York next week, the Met Gala of the shipping industry. Mr. Whitaker will be there, begging for investors. And you, Stefan said, will be the mystery investor he is dying to meet. The transformation didn't happen in a day. It took a grueling, meticulous month in Zurich, a period Isobel would later refer to as her re-education. Stefan Fjord understood that money was only a tool. To wield it effectively against a man like Grant Whitaker, Isobel needed armor. She was moved from the hotel to a private estate in the Zurichberg district, a fortress of stone and glass hidden behind tall pines. You have the money, Stefan told her on the first morning, as they sat in a sunroom that overlooked the Alps. But you do not yet have the presence. Grant Whitaker is a narcissist. He smells weakness. If you walk into that room as Isobel the victim, he will destroy you again, billionaire or not. You must become Isobel, the matriarch. Her team consisted of 3 people. First was Henri, a severe, terrifyingly honest stylist who had previously worked for the private client division of LVMH in Paris. Your hair, Henri said, circling her like a shark. It is apologetic. It says, I am sorry for taking up space. We will change this. They cut her hair. Gone were the limp, shoulder-length brown locks. Grant had always insisted she keep natural, which really meant cheap to maintain. In its place, Henri gave her a sharp, angular bob, dyed a rich, lustrous chestnut that caught the light. It framed her face, highlighting cheekbones she hadn't realized she had. Her wardrobe was purged. The polyester blends and sensible flats were incinerated. Henri dressed her in structural pieces, Tom Ford, Alexander McQueen, the row, clothes that didn't just cover the body, but commanded the room. Posture, Henri would snap as she walked, shoulders back, chin up. You are worth $1 billion. Walk as if the ground is lucky to have you step on it. The second member of the team was Dr. Elias Thorne, a forensic accountant and corporate strategist. For 3 weeks, Isobel spent 8 hours a day in a library, studying the internal organs of Grant's business. Whitaker Logistics is bleeding, Dr. Thorne explained, projecting spreadsheets onto a screen. Grant plays the part of the tycoon, but look here. He pointed to a red column. He's leveraged the company assets to secure personal loans. He bought the Hamptons house through a shell company listed as a corporate retreat. He leased the Ferrari as a company vehicle. He is committing tax fraud, but it's buried deep. More importantly, his contract with your company, Global Transatlantic, GTA, expires on December 31st. That's in 2 weeks, Isobel noted, her eyes scanning the numbers. She was surprising herself. She had always been good with math. She did the household budget for 10 years, but Grant had told her she was too simple to understand business. Exactly, Thorne said. He needs a renewal. Without GTA's shipping containers, his logistics chain snaps. He defaults on his deliveries to Amazon and Walmart. The penalty clauses alone will bankrupt him in 48 hours. So I can just refuse to renew? Isobel asked. You could, Stefan interjected from the doorway, but that is a quick death. A bludgeoning. You want him to suffer, do you not? You want him to know. Isabel looked at the photo of Grant and Tiffany on the screen. It was from Instagram, posted 2 days ago. Number, living the dream. Number, power couple. I don't just want to end him, Isobel said coldly. I want him to build his own gallows. The third member of the team was the most important, a vocal coach named Madame Dubois. She taught Isabel how to lower her register, how to remove the tremor of uncertainty from her voice. Do not fill the silence, Madame Dubois instructed. When you ask a question, wait. Let him be uncomfortable. Power lies in the pause. By the end of the month, Isabel didn't recognize herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was sharp, elegant, and terrifyingly calm. She was no longer the woman who begged for grocery money. She was Miss Sterling, the sole heir to an industrial empire. You are ready, Stefan said, handing her a black envelope. The Gilded Horizon Gala is this Saturday at the Plaza Hotel in New York. Every major player in shipping and logistics will be there, including Grant. Does he know who the new owner of GTA is? No, we have kept the acquisition strictly confidential. He knows there is a new majority shareholder, a silent partner from Europe, named Miss Sterling. He has been emailing our office 5 times a day, trying to get a meeting with you. Let him wait, Isobel said, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. I'll see him at the ball. The Plaza Hotel ballroom was a sea of velvet, silk, and jewels. The theme of the Gilded Horizon Gala was Venetian nights, a convenient excuse for the city's elite to hide their sins behind elaborate masks. Grant Whitaker stood near the bar, nursing a scotch he couldn't really afford. He was stressed. His phone had been buzzing all night with messages from his CFO. The GTA contract renewal was stalled. The new owners were ghosting him. If he didn't secure that signature by the end of the month, the house of cards would collapse. Grant, baby, you're not paying attention to me, Tiffany whined, tugging on his tuxedo sleeve. She was wearing a dress that was too tight and too sparkly, a neon pink confection that looked garish next to the understated elegance of the other guests. Her mask was a cheap, feathered thing she'd bought online. Not now, Tiff, Grant snapped, scanning the room. I need to find the representative from Global Transatlantic. Rumor has it the new owner is here tonight. You're always working, Tiffany pouted. I want another champagne. Go get it yourself, he muttered, pushing her away. He adjusted his mask. He needed to be charming tonight. He needed to be the Grant Whitaker everyone envied. Suddenly, the room went quiet. The chatter died down, replaced by a ripple of whispers. At the top of the grand staircase, a woman had appeared. She was a vision in midnight blue. Her gown, a custom creation by Elie Saab, flowed like liquid water, shimmering with thousands of tiny dark crystals. It was backless, revealing skin that looked like porcelain. She wore a mask made of delicate, filigreed silver that covered the upper half of her face, leaving only her mouth and jaw visible. She didn't walk, she glided. Who is that? Someone whispered near Grant. That's the Sterling woman, another voice answered. The Swiss heiress. I heard she just bought half the Atlantic supply chain. Grant's heart hammered. That was her, the target. He watched as she descended the stairs. Men, powerful men, CEOs, and senators parted like the Red Sea to let her pass. She acknowledged them with cool nods, but stopped for no one. Grant downed his drink. This was his chance. He smoothed his jacket, put on his best winning smile, the one that had charmed investors and seduced Tiffany and intercepted her path. Miss Sterling, I presume? Grant said, stepping in front of her. Isobel stopped. Up close, he looked older than she remembered. The stress was etching lines around his eyes. He smelled of the same expensive cologne, but underneath, she could smell the fear. She looked at him through the eye holes of her silver mask. He had no idea. He looked right into the eyes of the woman he had lived with for 10 years, the woman whose heart he had broken, and saw only a checkbook. And you are? Isabel asked. Her voice was an octave lower than he knew, smooth and cultured, with a faint, unplaceable transatlantic lilt she had practiced for weeks. Grant Whitaker, he said, extending a hand. CEO of Whitaker Logistics. We've been partners with your company for years. Isabel looked at his hand, then up at his face. She didn't take it. The pause stretched. 5 seconds. 10. Grant's smile faltered. He began to sweat. "Ah, yes," she finally said, ignoring the hand. "Mr. Whitaker, the man who is currently 3 months late on his container lease payments." Grant choked. A clerical error. My people are sorting it out. In fact, that's why I was hoping to run into you. We're eager to renew our partnership. We have big things on the horizon. Huge growth. Growth, Isabel repeated dryly. Is that what you call leveraging corporate assets to pay for a divorce settlement? Grant froze. Excuse me? I do my due diligence, Mr. Whitaker, she said, stepping closer. She towered over him in her heels. I know everything about the companies I own. I know about your margins. I know about your debt. I know about your liabilities. She glanced over his shoulder at Tiffany, who was currently loudly berating a waiter for not having the right brand of vodka. Your liability seems to be making a scene, Isabel observed. Grant flushed crimson. She's just an associate. Look, Miss Sterling, let me buy you a drink. Let's talk numbers. I can offer you terms that I don't drink with debtors, Isabel cut him off, but I am a fair woman. I will give you a chance to save your company. Grant's eyes lit up. Anything. Name it. I'm holding a private meeting tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. at my office in the financial district. If you can prove to me that you are a man of integrity, I will sign the renewal. Integrity is my middle name, Grant lied smoothly. Is it? Isabel tilted her head. Funny. I heard you left your wife of 10 years penniless. That doesn't sound like integrity to me. Grant laughed, a nervous, dismissive sound. Oh, that? That was just shedding dead weight. My ex. She was a nobody. A leech. She didn't understand business. She held me back. Honestly, getting rid of her was the best business decision I ever made. Isabel felt a flash of pure, white-hot rage, but her face remained a mask of stone. Is that so? She murmured. Well then, Mr. Whitaker, bring your financial records tomorrow, and bring your fiancée. I want to see the future of your company. Bring Tiffany? Grant looked confused. If she is your partner, she should be there. Unless you're ashamed of her? No, of course not. We'll be there. Good. Isabel leaned in, her lips inches from his ear. Don't be late. I despise wasted time. She walked away, leaving him standing there, breathless and terrified, thinking he had just charmed a billionaire. As Isabel walked toward the terrace for some air, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Stefan. The trap is set. The lawyers are ready for tomorrow. Do you have the recording? Isabel touched the small diamond brooch on her dress. It concealed a high-fidelity microphone. She had recorded every word Grant had just said, calling her dead weight, a leech, admitting to his ruthlessness. She typed back, I have it. He's going to wish he never walked into this room. She stepped out onto the balcony, the cold New York air hitting her skin. Below, the city lights twinkled. Somewhere out there, in a cramped Queen's apartment, the old Isabel had cried herself to sleep. Tomorrow, the new Isabel would burn Grant's world to the ground, and she would do it with his own pen. The conference room at Global Transatlantic's New York headquarters was designed to intimidate, located on the 45th floor of a glass monolith in the financial district. It offered a panoramic view of the Hudson River, gray, churning, and cold. Grant Whitaker arrived at 8:55 a.m., his knuckles white as he gripped his briefcase. Beside him, Tiffany looked bored and slightly hungover, scrolling through TikTok on her phone. She wore oversized sunglasses and a tracksuit that looked expensive but inappropriate for a corporate meeting. Put the phone away, Grant hissed. This woman holds my entire life in her hands. If you embarrass me, I swear. Relax, babe, Tiffany snapped, popping her gum. She's just some old European lady, probably lonely. Tell her she looks pretty and sign the papers. Grant smoothed his tie. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. He had spent the night rehearsing his pitch. He needed this deal. The bank had called him at 7 a.m., threatening to foreclose on the warehouse if he didn't show proof of a valid supplier contract by noon. The heavy oak doors swung open. A young assistant with terrified eyes stepped in. "Miss Sterling will see you now." Grant stood up, heart pounding. He walked into the inner sanctum. The room was vast. At the far end, a massive table made of black marble stretched out like a runway. Sitting at the head of the table, with her back to the window, and the light creating a silhouette around her, was the woman from the gala. She wore a sharp white suit today, crisp, tailored, immaculate. Her hair was perfect. She didn't look up as they entered, continuing to read a file in front of her. "Miss Sterling?" Grant said, his voice cracking slightly. "Thank you for seeing us." The woman didn't move. "Sit." Grant and Tiffany sat. The chairs were low, forcing them to look up at her. "I have reviewed your file, Mr. Whitaker," the woman said, her voice cool and detached. "Your financials are chaotic. You claim your company is growing, yet your debt-to-equity ratio is alarmingly high. And your personal spending," she tapped a page, "with a manicured fingernail, is frankly reckless." "We're restructuring," Grant said quickly. "It's a temporary liquidity issue. My divorce. It was expensive. My ex-wife, she dragged it out, tried to take everything. Is that so?" The woman finally looked up. She was wearing dark glasses. "I was under the impression she settled for a pittance." Grant laughed nervously. "Well, yes. My lawyers are good. She got what she deserved. 10 grand. Enough to buy a bus ticket to nowhere. Honestly, she was holding me back. No vision. No ambition. Just dead weight." "Dead weight," the woman repeated slowly. "You used that phrase last night." "It's the truth," Grant said, gaining confidence. She was a simple woman, small-minded. She didn't understand the world of high finance. She belonged in a kitchen, not a boardroom. Tiffany giggled. "She sounds pathetic." "She was," Grant agreed. "But enough about the past. I'm here to talk about the future, about our partnership. If you sign this renewal, I can promise you a 15% return on your investment within 6 months." The woman stood up. She walked slowly around the table, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The sound echoed like gunshots. "You speak of partnership, Mr. Whitaker," she said, stopping right behind his chair. "You speak of integrity, yet you lie to your investors. You lie to your bank. And most interestingly," she leaned down, her voice dropping to a whisper, "you lie to yourself." She reached up and slowly removed her dark glasses. "Hello, Grant." Grant spun around in his chair. He stared. He blinked. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The eyes were unmistakable. They were the same eyes that had looked at him with love for 10 years. The same eyes that had cried when he told her he was leaving. "Isobel?" he whispered. It came out as a strangled croak. Tiffany looked up from her phone. "Wait. Who?" "Isobel," Grant said louder, standing up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "What? What are you doing here? How did you get in here?" "Sit down, Grant," Isobel said. Her voice wasn't the soft, pleading tone he remembered. It was a command. "I don't understand," Grant stammered, looking around the room as if expecting a hidden camera. "Where is Miss Sterling? The owner? Are you her assistant? Did you sleep with someone to get a job here?" Isobel laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. "You really are dense, aren't you?" She walked back to the head of the table and sat down. "I am Miss Sterling, Isobel Sterling, my mother's maiden name. The dead weight you discarded just inherited the controlling interest in Global Transatlantic." She picked up the contract Grant had placed on the table, the renewal he needed to save his life. You own the company?" Grant's face went from pale to a sickly gray. "I own the company," Isobel confirmed. "I own the shipping containers your goods are currently sitting in. I own the warehouse lease you're defaulting on, and as of this morning, I bought your outstanding debt from the bank." Grant grabbed the edge of the table to steady himself. You can't be serious. You have billions, and you have nothing," Isobel said calmly. She held up the contract. "You came here for a signature, Grant. You came here to save your little empire, but you forgot one thing." "What?" Grant whispered. "You forgot to take out the trash." Isobel ripped the contract in half. Then, in quarters. She let the pieces flutter down onto the marble table like confetti. The renewal is denied. Your lease is terminated, effective immediately. You have 24 hours to vacate the warehouse. If your goods are not moved, they will be seized as collateral for the debt you now owe me. You can't do this, Grant screamed, lunging forward. This is illegal. I'll sue you. On what grounds? Isobel asked, not even flinching. Breach of contract? There is no contract. It expired yesterday. I am simply choosing not to do business with a liability. She pressed a button on the intercom. Security, please escort Mr. Whitaker and his associate out of the building. 2 massive guards entered the room. Isobel, please. Grant fell to his knees. Actual tears streamed down his face. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry. I was stressed. I didn't mean what I said. We can work this out. We can work this out. Think of the kids. Think of us. There is no us, Grant, Isobel said, standing up and turning her back to him to look out the window. And as for the kids, I've already set up trust funds for them. They'll be fine. You, however, you might want to ask Tiffany if she's willing to support you. Grant looked at Tiffany. Tiffany stood up, looked at Grant on his knees, then looked at Isobel's back. You're broke? Tiffany asked Grant, her voice full of disgust. Tiff, baby, it's just a setback. I'm out, Tiffany said. She grabbed her bag and walked out the door without looking back. Grant was left kneeling on the floor, sobbing. The guards grabbed him by the arms and dragged him out, his pleas echoing down the hallway until the heavy doors slammed shut. Isobel stood alone in the silence. She took a deep breath. She didn't feel joy. She didn't feel sadness. She felt free. The elevator ride down from the 45th floor of the Global Transatlantic Building was the longest 45 seconds of Grant Whitaker's life. The silence was suffocating. He stood in the corner of the mirrored box, his reflection showing a man who was rapidly unraveling. His tie was askew, his forehead slick with cold sweat, and his hands were trembling so violently he had to shove them into his pockets. Tiffany stood on the opposite side, aggressively typing on her phone. Tiff, Grant croaked, breaking the silence. Listen, don't worry. It's a negotiation tactic. She's bluffing. She can't just cancel a contract like that without— Save it, Grant, Tiffany snapped, not looking up. I just Googled her. Isobel Sterling. The news dropped 10 minutes ago on Business Insider. She's not just rich, she's old money rich. She's the majority shareholder of the conglomerate that owns your debt. You're done. The doors chimed and slid open into the lobby. The security guards, who had escorted them down, stepped out and gestured toward the revolving doors. Please exit the premises immediately, Mr. Whitaker, the lead guard said, his voice void of the respect Grant was used to commanding. They stepped out onto the sidewalk of the financial district. The wind was biting, whipping around the skyscrapers. Grant reached for Tiffany's arm. Where are we going? Let's go to the loft. I need to call Samuel. We can fix this. Tiffany pulled her arm away, as if he were contagious. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, an Uber Black she had summoned in the elevator. I'm going to the loft to pack my bags, she said coldly. My sister is picking me up in an hour. Don't be there. Tiffany, you can't just leave. We're engaged. She turned to him, lowering her sunglasses to reveal eyes that held zero sympathy. Grant, look at you. You're shaking. You have no company, no money, and an ex-wife who hates your guts and has $1 billion to prove it. You're a sinking ship, and I don't do drowning. She climbed into the SUV and slammed the door. Grant stood on the pavement, watching the taillights disappear into traffic. For the first time in 10 years, he was completely alone. He reached into his pocket for his phone to call his driver, then remembered he had laid off the driver 2 weeks ago to cover the lease on the Ferrari. He opened the Uber app. His credit card was declined. Grant Whitaker, the man who had mocked Isobel for taking the subway, began the long walk to the train station. The domino effect. The destruction of Whitaker Logistics wasn't instantaneous. It was a slow, agonizing bleed that Grant was forced to watch in high definition. The following morning, Grant arrived at his office in New Jersey to find a chain-link fence erected around the perimeter of the shipping yard. A bright orange notice was zip-tied to the gate, seized by order of the United States Marshal Service. His employees were standing in the parking lot, confused and angry. When Grant pulled up in his leased Ferrari, the last symbol of his status, they swarmed him. "Grant! The gates are locked!" His operations manager, a burly man named Mike, shouted. "And payroll didn't clear last night. My bank says insufficient funds. What is going on?" "It's a mistake," Grant lied, his voice shrill. "A banking error. I'm calling them right now." "Mr. Whitaker?" Grant turned to see two sheriff's deputies approaching his car. Behind them was a tow truck. "Grant Whitaker?" the deputy asked, holding a clipboard. "Yes, we have a writ of replevin for the Ferrari 488 Spider. Payments are 6 months behind. The leasing company has authorized immediate repossession." No, look. I can write you a check right now." Grant fumbled for his checkbook, his hands shaking so hard he dropped it on the asphalt. "We don't take personal checks, sir. Step out of the vehicle." The humiliation was absolute. In front of 50 of his employees, Grant was forced out of the car. He watched as the tow truck driver hooked up the red sports car, the car he had bought to impress Tiffany, the car he had told Isabel was essential for his image. As the truck drove away, dragging his ego with it, Mike, the operations manager, spat on the ground near Grant's Italian loafers. "You're a fraud, Grant. I'm calling the union." By noon, the news had broken. The Wall Street Journal ran a small piece in the business section. Whitaker Logistics collapses amidst fraud allegations and supplier pullout. The article mentioned that the primary supplier, Global Transatlantic, had terminated relations due to breach of ethical conduct and financial instability. It didn't mention Isabel by name, but Grant knew. Every word was a dagger she had personally sharpened. He sat in his office, which he had broken into through a back window, staring at the wall. His phone rang. It was Samuel Dosh, his shark of a lawyer. "Grant, I'm dropping you," Samuel said without preamble. "You can't. I need to sue her. She ruined me." "Sue her with what money, Grant? Your retainer is gone. Your assets are frozen. And frankly, I've seen the audit regarding the corporate retreat in the Hamptons. You committed tax fraud. You're going to be lucky if you stay out of prison. I'm not going down with you." The line went dead. Grant put his head in his hands. The silence of the empty office was deafening. He looked at the framed photo on his desk. It was an old picture, one he had forgotten to throw away. It was from 10 years ago, him and Isabel, grilling in the backyard of their first, modest home. She was laughing, holding a spatula, looking at him like he was the center of the universe. "You should have just paid the rent," he whispered to the empty room. The rise of the matriarch. While Grant's world was contracting into a singularity of debt and shame, Isabel's world was expanding. She didn't just step into the role of Harris. She inhabited it. With Stefan Fjord's guidance, she took a seat on the board of Global Transatlantic. Her first act was to initiate a complete audit of the company's ethics policies. She fired 3 executives who had known about Grant's fraudulent activities but looked the other way. But business was just the engine. Her passion was the destination. 6 months after the confrontation, Isabel stood in the center of a grand ballroom at the Pierre Hotel. This time, she wasn't the mysterious guest. She was the host. It was the launch of the Sterling Initiative. She wore a gown of emerald green silk, a color of life and renewal. She stood at the podium, looking out at a sea of faces, donors, politicians, and advocates. For a long time, Isabel spoke, her voice clear and resonant, amplified by the microphone. "I was told that my value was tied to how well I served someone else. I was told that my kindness was a weakness. I was told I was dead weight." A ripple of recognition went through the crowd. The story of her divorce had become something of an urban legend in New York high society. "But I learned," she continued, "that weight is only a burden if you are carrying the wrong things. When I dropped the expectations of others, I found my own strength. The Sterling Initiative is dedicated to every woman who has been told she is nothing. We are here to tell you that you are everything." The applause was thunderous. Flashbulbs popped. Later that night, as the party wound down, Stefan approached her with a glass of champagne. "You did well, Isabel," he said, his stoic Swiss demeanor cracking into a genuine smile. "Your great-uncle Alistair would have been proud. You have the sterling steel in your spine." "Thank you, Stefan," she said. "But I have one more piece of business to attend to." "Oh?" "The Hamptons house," she said. "The foreclosure auction is tomorrow." Stefan raised an eyebrow. "Do you want to buy it back? Live there?" Isabel laughed. A light, free sound. "Live there? God, no. The bad energy in that house could kill a plant. No, I have a better idea." The auction. The auction was held in a dreary municipal building in downtown Manhattan. It was a distressed asset sale, a polite term for a graveyard of broken dreams. Grant was there. He shouldn't have been. It was masochistic, but he couldn't stay away. He sat in the back row, in a baseball cap pulled low, and a jacket that had seen better days. He looked gaunt. He had lost 20 pounds. He was currently living in a basement apartment in New Jersey that smelled of damp concrete, working the night shift at an Amazon fulfillment center. The irony was not lost on him. He was now moving boxes for a living, just a cog in the machine he used to think he owned. Item number 4, 102, the auctioneer droned. Estate located in East Hampton. 5 bedrooms, 6 baths, pool, private beach access, formerly the property of Whitaker Holdings. Opening bid at $2 million. Grant flinched. He had spent $5 million renovating that house. He had chosen the marble counters himself. $2 million, a voice called out. A developer. 2.5, another shouted. Grant watched, his stomach churning. That house was his sanctuary. It was where he had taken Tiffany. It was where he felt like a king. $5 million. A calm voice cut through the chaos. The room went silent. The jump in bidding was aggressive. Everyone turned. Standing near the door was a representative from Garrison, Fjord, and Associates. Grant recognized him. It was one of Isabel's lawyers. $5 million going once, the auctioneer said, sensing the dominance in the bid. Going twice. Sold to the gentleman in the gray suit. Grant felt like he was going to vomit. She bought it. She bought his house. She was probably going to bulldoze it, just to spite him. He slipped out of the back door before anyone could recognize him, stepping out into the rain. The final encounter. A year passed. Grant had settled into his new reality. It was a small, gray life. He drove a delivery van for a courier service now. He had enough money for rent, beer, and basic cable. Tiffany was long gone, married to a hedge fund manager in Connecticut. His old friends never called. It was a Tuesday in October when his dispatch radio crackled. "Whitaker, we got a priority drop-off. 880 Fifth Avenue, penthouse suite, requires a signature." Grant froze. He knew that address. It was one of the most exclusive buildings in the city. He drove the van into the city, fighting traffic. He parked in the loading dock and took the service elevator up, holding a small, flat package. He knocked on the heavy service door. A maid opened it. "Delivery?" "Yes, ma'am. Sign here." As she signed, the main door to the apartment opened behind her. Grant looked past the maid. The apartment was filled with light. It was tasteful, filled with art and books, none of the gaudy gold statues Grant had always favored. Walking into the hallway was Isabel. She looked radiant. She was wearing casual clothes, jeans, and a cashmere sweater, but she looked more expensive than she ever had in diamonds. She was laughing, talking to a man who was walking beside her. The man was tall, distinguished, with salt and pepper hair. He looked at Isabel with a warmth that Grant realized, with a pang of agony he had never truly given her. Isabel stopped. She looked toward the service door. Their eyes locked. For a second, the world stopped. Grant stood there, in his brown courier uniform, holding his digital pad, the ghost of the man he used to be. He expected her to be angry. He expected her to gloat. He expected her to say, "Look at you now." But she didn't. She just looked at him. Her expression was unreadable. It wasn't hate. It wasn't love. It was something far worse for Grant's ego. It was indifference. She offered him a small, polite nod. the kind you give to a stranger who holds the door for you. Then, she turned back to the man beside her, touched his arm, and continued her conversation, laughing at something he said. The maid handed the pad back to Grant. "You're all set." "Yeah," Grant whispered, his voice hollow. "All set." The door clicked shut. Grant stood in the hallway for a long time. He realized then that he hadn't just lost his money. He hadn't just lost his status. He had lost the only person who had ever truly loved him, and she was so over him that she didn't even care enough to hate him anymore. He walked back to the service elevator, pressed the down button, and descended back to the street level, back to his van, back to the life he had earned. Closure. The Hamptons' house wasn't bulldozed. 2 weeks after the auction, a new sign was placed at the end of the driveway. It wasn't flashy. It was a simple wooden sign, carved with a logo of a rising sun. The Sterling House, a sanctuary for women and families. Isabel had turned the symbol of Grant's greed into a haven for his victims. The master bedroom, where Grant had once planned hostile takeovers, was now a playroom for children. The man cave in the basement was a counseling center. The pool was filled with kids learning to swim, their laughter chasing away the ghosts of the past. Isobel sat on the back porch of the house, watching the sunset over the ocean. She held a mug of tea in her hands. Her phone buzzed. It was an email from her lawyer. Subject: Final dissolution, Isobel. Just confirming that the final liens against Mr. Whitaker have been processed. The remaining debt has been written off as a tax loss for the company. You are completely untethered. You are free. Isobel put the phone down on the table. She looked out at the waves, crashing against the shore. She thought about the courtroom. She thought about the $10,000 settlement. She thought about the humiliation. It felt like a lifetime ago, like a story that happened to someone else. She took a deep breath of the salty air. She didn't feel the need to check Grant's social media. She didn't care where he was or what he was doing. The anger that had fueled her transformation had burned itself out, leaving behind something cleaner, stronger. She was no longer defined by the man who broke her, nor by the money that saved her. She was defined by what she built from the wreckage. Isobel stood up, wrapping her cardigan tighter around herself. From inside the house, she could hear the sound of dinner being prepared, the clatter of plates, the hum of conversation, the feeling of a home that was finally, truly full. She turned her back on the ocean and walked inside, closing the sliding glass door behind her. The ex-husband who mocked her was a memory. The billionaire legacy was a tool. But Isobel Sterling, she was just getting started. And that, my friends, is how you serve a dish of revenge. Not just cold, but frozen solid. From the courtroom floor to the boardroom of a billion-dollar empire, Isobel didn't just win the game, she bought the stadium. I love that she didn't just destroy Grant. She used his trophy house to help others. It's the ultimate power move, turning his selfishness into her selflessness. It really makes you think about what wealth actually means, doesn't it? If this story gave you chills, or if you just loved seeing Grant get exactly what he deserved, hit that like button right now. It helps us tell more stories like this. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What was the most satisfying part? Was it the boardroom reveal? Or was it the moment in the hallway where she just moved on? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to hear our next saga. Until next time, remember, living well isn't just the best revenge, it's the only revenge that matters. Bye for now.